Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. The Holy Father Pope Francis travelled to the Italian city of Matera to take part in the conclusion of the National Eucharistic Congress on Sunday. During Holy Mass attended by thousands, the Pontiff exhorted believers to rediscover Eucharistic adoration. His Holiness said, "Let us return to Jesus. Let us return to the Eucharist." He added that Jesus becomes food that feeds and heals everyone, as we are all broken by the travails and sufferings of life. More than 80 prelates and hundreds of representatives from all Italian dioceses took part in the Congress, which carried the theme, "Let us return to the taste of bread for a Eucharistic and synodal church." The ancient city of Matera is also known as the City of Bread, as it is famed for its sourdough recipe. Hundreds of American Christians assembled in Washington, D.C. to express solidarity with persecuted Christians around the world on Saturday. The annual March for the Martyrs took place at the National Mall under the auspices of Gia Chacon, founder of the Organization for the Martyrs. Advocates of religious freedom called on believers to learn from those who chose to sacrifice their lives rather than renounce their belief in Jesus Christ. The event included live worship music of John Forrestec and speeches by Chacon, Father Simon Isaki of the Chaldean Catholic Church, and evangelists Jacob Coyne and Shane Winnings. At the Museum of the Bible, a night of prayer was held. Chacon emphasised that the March for the Martyrs is more than a march for persecuted Christians. She said it is a movement where they are waking up Christians of all denominations across the United States to raise their voices on behalf of the persecuted faithful. A Vatican expert in Chinese affairs has come out openly in praise of Hong Kong's Cardinal Joseph Zen, whose trial begins today. In an open letter, Cardinal Fernando Filoni, the former prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, said Cardinal Zen is a man of God and an authentic Chinese. Cardinal Filoni said, "No one among those I have known can be truly as loyal as he is." He also expressed hope that Cardinal Zen would not be condemned by Chinese authorities. The 90-year-old cardinal was arrested in May under the national security law and was charged with colluding with foreign forces. The trial was initially set for September the 23rd, but it had to be postponed as the judge contracted COVID. Hong Kong authorities accuse Cardinal Zen of failing to register the now defunct 612 Humanitarian Fund, which provided financial aid to pro-democracy protesters. In the US state of Pennsylvania, a noted pro-life author and counsellor was arrested at his residence during a SWAT raid on Friday. Around 30 armed FBI members forcibly took away Mark Houck from his house as his traumatised children looked on. This came after the Department of Justice ordered a raid on his residence after he was accused of violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. His wife, Ryan Marie, recollected how the agents yelled at their 7 children to go upstairs while they pointed guns at the couple. She said the warrant they showed accused Mr. Houck of attacking a patient escort. She said that her husband was forced to shove a pro-choice man who was hurling abuses at him in front of their 12-year-old son near an abortion clinic. Mr. Houck drives to Philadelphia every Wednesday to counsel mothers outside abortion facilities for about 8 hours at a time. A judge in the US state of Arizona has reinforced a long-standing law that bans abortions. Pima County Superior Court Judge Kelly Johnson reinstated the old law that was passed way back in 1864. The old law faced hurdles after the 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling, when the Arizona Court of Appeals declared the law to be unconstitutional. Judge Johnson said in the ruling that since the legal basis for the 1973 ruling has now been overturned, it must set aside the judgment in its entirety. Anyone performing an abortion now faces imprisonment of between 2 to 5 years. State Attorney General Mark Brnovich lauded the court ruling in a Twitter message. In July, he had filed a motion seeking permission for the law to be enacted. In the United States, 13 states have laws that ban almost all abortions. The Arizona law prohibits all abortions with no exception for rape or for incest. The only exception is when the health of the mother is in jeopardy. Exit polls in Italy have revealed that right-wing leader Giorgia Meloni is all set to become the nation's first female Prime Minister. She is likely to form the government, as Meloni is expected to garner 26% of the vote, ahead of her rival Enrico Letta, who's from the centre-left. The leader of the Brothers of Italy party said she would govern for everyone and would not betray the trust of Italians. Speaking to reporters, she also said that Italians have sent a clear message in favour of a right-wing government. Her alliance includes the far-right League of Matteo Salvini and the centre-right Forza Italia of former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi. Meloni's alliance is expected to control both the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies. Catholics in the US state of California have reacted against a blasphemous billboard advertisement unveiled by Governor Gavin Newsom. The advertisement inviting women to travel to California to have abortions cites Mark 12:31. The Gospel passage says, "Love your neighbour as yourself. There is no greater commandment than these." Chris Check, the president of California-based apologetics organisation Catholic Answers, has said that the ad commits blasphemy by co-opting sacred scripture in service of abortion. The Gospel passage appears in small text. Below the caption, "Need an abortion? California is ready to help." The Democrat governor is expected to emerge victorious in the election this autumn. It was on September the 15th that he announced the abortion ads that would appear on billboards. The chairman of the US Conference of Catholic Bishops' Committee on International Justice and Peace has criticised Russia's gestures to use nuclear weapons in the war with Ukraine. Bishop David Malloy of Rockford said, as tensions grow at the United Nations General Assembly, growing rhetorical gestures threatening the use of nuclear weapons must be condemned. The prelate said that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. Bishop Malloy also added that any threat to use nuclear weapons reminds us of their heinous nature. Pope Francis, too, said it is madness to think of using nuclear weapons. He said this early last week during his weekly general audience after President Vladimir Putin vowed to use all means to protect Russia. Pope Francis has called for the release of the 9 Catholics, including 5 priests and a religious sister, who were abducted in Cameroon's Mamfe. In his Angelus address, the Holy Father prayed for peace for Cameroon, which has been ravaged by a civil war raging since 2017. There were media reports that St. Mary's Catholic Church in Nchang was set ablaze on the night of September the 16th. In the melee, 5 priests, a nun, a cook, a catechist, and a 15-year-old girl living in the convent were kidnapped by the assailants. The Catholic bishops strongly flayed the abduction and the attack, saying that enough is enough. Cameroon is plagued by conflict in the Anglophone area known as Ambazonia. Armed separatists are fighting the troops of the largely Francophone country. They are seeking a separate state for the English-speaking parts of Cameroon. The Pope also appealed to the world not to forget the suffering of the people in Myanmar and in Ukraine. The Catholic Church will continue to fearlessly be the voice of Nigeria. So said Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, Ignatius Kaigama, at the end of the 3rd General Assembly of the Archdiocese on Sunday. In his pastoral message, he said the Church will continue to voice its views against corruption and bad governance in Nigeria. He said both the Church and the State, though different, are serving humanity. The Archbishop stressed that this common ground should encourage more cooperation and co-responsibility. He observed that the Church and politics are not isolated from each other. Nonetheless, the two cannot be subsumed into one entity. The prelate said that a church that will not speak the truth is a church that cannot credibly bear witness to Christ in the world. Nearly a dozen Christians have been abducted from a church in northwest Nigeria by suspected Fulani herdsmen on Saturday, September the 17th. The congregation of Cherubim and Seraphim Church in Suleya were holding a night vigil when the assailants stormed the building and kidnapped the pastor and believers. Reverend Raphael Opawoye of the Christian Association of Nigeria said that Christians have suffered persistent attacks by herdsmen and other terrorists in the country. A week ago, reports emerged of as many as 60 members of the same denomination being kidnapped in the north-central part of the country. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of Italy has announced that it will be donating as much as €6.4 million to impoverished communities around the world. Speaking on behalf of the prelates, Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, who heads the Episcopal Conference, said that funds were collected from the contributions of the faithful. Communities in the Sahel region and the Horn of Africa will receive around €2 million. Nations in those regions of Africa are facing crises such as conflict, food shortages and drought. The rest of the funds will go to the afflicted people in India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and impoverished nations in the Middle East. Cardinal Zuppi said that the money will help the people in those countries who are facing wars, natural disasters, and pandemics. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more. And remember, you can also visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.